What family secret came out that changed everything? My heart nearly stopped when I read my DNA test results. It showed the man I've called Dad all my life isn't my biological father. I must have reread that line a dozen times, convinced it was a mistake. We share the same eye color, the same goofy sense of humor. How could I not be his son? But DNA doesn't lie. A stranger's name showed up as my father. Shaking with shock, I called my older brother. I blurted out, "The DNA test says Dad isn't my father." He was stunned and insisted we talk to Mom immediately. That evening, we sat Mom down. I could barely get the words out, I was so anxious. "Mom," I said, "why does my DNA say Dad isn't my dad?" Her face went pale. After a long silence, tears in her eyes, she admitted the truth. Over 20 years ago, during a rough patch in her marriage, she had a brief affair. When she found out she was pregnant with me, she reconciled with my dad and never told him I might not be his. She hoped and prayed the secret would stay buried forever. I felt like the ground had fallen away beneath me. I was furious and terrified at once. Furious that she lied to both of us for over 2 decades, and terrified that I might lose the only dad I've ever known. Despite Mom begging us not to, we decided Dad needed to know. I called him to come over, saying it was urgent. When Dad arrived and saw Mom's tear-streaked face, he knew something terrible was up. With my heart pounding, I told him about the DNA results. He looked at me in utter confusion, then turned to Mom. At that moment, Mom broke down and confessed everything. The affair, the secret, all of it. I watched my father's face as shock and hurt washed over him. He went very quiet, which was scarier than if he'd started yelling. After a long, painful silence, he stood up. His eyes were wet as he looked at me. My stomach was in knots. I feared he might turn his back on me. But instead, Dad walked over and pulled me into a tight hug. "You will always be my son," he choked out. "Nothing changes that. Understand?" I broke down, sobbing in his arms, nodding against his shoulder. Relief and love flooded through me. In that moment, I knew the man who truly raised me was my dad in every way that mattered. He then turned to Mom. I could see the betrayal in his eyes. Voice trembling, he said to her, "We'll talk later," and left the house to process everything. The weeks that followed were tense and heartbreaking. Dad stayed at my brother's place at first, needing space from Mom. But he still called me often, reassuring me that this wasn't my fault and that he loved me the same as before. Mom reached out to me too, apologizing over and over for the pain she'd caused. Eventually, Dad agreed to sit down with Mom. It was a tough, emotional conversation, but amazingly, he chose to try to forgive her. They're working on rebuilding trust, slowly. It's not easy. Some nights I notice Dad sleeping on the couch and Mom's eyes are always sad these days. As for me, I'm still reeling. The entire foundation of my identity shifted in one day. I had anger towards my mom for her deception and confusion about what my biological father's existence means for me. But one thing I'm sure of is who my real dad is. It's the man who raised me, comforted me, and hugged me saying I'll always be his son. That DNA surprise rocked our world to the core, but it also showed me the depth of a father's love, something no test can ever take away. I was the last person in my entire family to find out that my father had a whole other family, another woman and 2 young kids, behind our backs, and everyone else knew except me. That revelation absolutely shattered me. The night I found out, I was 14 and about to start at a new high school the next day. My mom called me into the living room, and I could tell by her face and the presence of my aunt and grandma that something was very wrong. With a pained look, Mom told me, "There's something you need to know about your father." My stomach flipped. Then she said it. "Your dad has another family. He's been living a double life." I blinked, thinking I misheard, but as she haltingly explained, it all became horrifyingly clear. For years, my dad had been involved with another woman. They had 2 little kids together, kids who were my half-siblings, and he'd been splitting his time between us and them under elaborate lies. My parents had recently divorced, and it turned out the real reason was this secret family. He was leaving to go live with them permanently. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Immediately, I started shaking and asking, "How long have you known? Who else knows this?" Tears welled up in Mom's eyes as she admitted she had known for a while. Then my aunt quietly confessed that the whole extended family knew, even my younger cousins. They'd all kept it secret from me at my mom's request, hoping to protect me until the time was right. I could not believe it. Everyone had been looking me in the eye for years, hiding the fact that my dad was leading a double life. I blinked, thinking I misheard. But as she haltingly explained, it all became horrifyingly clear. For years, my dad had been involved with another woman. They had 2 little kids together, kids who were my half-siblings, and he'd been splitting his time between us and them under elaborate lies. My parents had recently divorced, and it turned out the real reason was this secret family. He was leaving to go live with them permanently. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Immediately, I started shaking and asking, "How long have you known? Who else knows this?" Tears welled up in Mom's eyes as she admitted she had known for a while. Then my aunt quietly confessed that the whole extended family knew, even my younger cousins. They'd all kept it secret from me at my mom's request, hoping to protect me until the time was right. I could not believe it. Everyone had been looking me in the eye for years, hiding the fact that my dad was leading a double life. I was beyond furious and hurt. I remember standing up, my voice cracking as I yelled through tears, "So I'm the family idiot? The only one who didn't know?" My mom tried to hug me, but I pushed her away. I ran to my room and slammed the door, sobbing like my world was ending, because it felt like it was. When I eventually spoke to my dad, after dodging his calls for days, it was mostly to scream at him. He apologized over and over, saying he never wanted to hurt me, and that I'd understand someday why he did it. That made me even angrier. I told him I wanted nothing to do with meeting his other kids or his mistress-turned-partner. He sounded heartbroken, but it was hard to feel pity after what he'd done. The fallout was messy. I couldn't stand to talk to Mom for a while either. I felt betrayed that she hadn't told me sooner. We eventually started therapy together, and I slowly understood that she was just trying to hold things together until she couldn't anymore. It's been over a year now, and to be honest, I'm still dealing with trust issues and anger. I did meet my half-siblings once in a controlled setting. They're innocent in all this, but it was still surreal and hard for me emotionally. This secret didn't just change our family, it blew it up. My father broke my trust in a way that's hard to repair. I'm working on moving forward, day by day. I still love my dad, or at least who I thought he was. But I don't know if I can ever fully forgive him or anyone who kept his secret. Finding out that I'd been lied to by my entire family about something so fundamental, it truly turned my world upside down. For 40 years, I believed my biological father wanted nothing to do with me. My mom always told me he left us when I was a baby and never looked back. I grew up thinking he was a heartless deadbeat. That belief shattered when a long-buried truth came out after it was far too late. A few months ago, I got an unexpected message from a woman claiming to be my Aunt Carol, my estranged father's sister. She told me that my father, John, had recently passed away. I was stunned. I'd never even met the man, and now I never would. But what truly rocked me was what Aunt Carol revealed next. My father had never stopped loving me or trying to be in my life. In fact, he'd spent years attempting to reach me, only to be shut out. We talked on the phone and she told me everything. When my parents divorced, my mom essentially cut off all contact between me and Dad. According to my aunt, Dad showed up on scheduled weekends to see me, but Mom turned him away every time. He sent me birthday and Christmas gifts that I never received. Mom must have discarded them. He even wrote me letters throughout my life that he hoped to give me someday. My aunt had found a box of these letters among his belongings after he died. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room as she spoke. All my life, I'd been angry at a man who apparently wanted nothing more than to know me. Aunt Carol later mailed me the shoebox of letters. Sitting on my living room floor, I read letter after letter from my father spanning decades. In them, he poured out his heart, describing how he peeked through a window to see me on my 5th birthday because Mom wouldn't let him in. How proud he was when he heard I made honor roll in high school. How he wished he could be there in person for my milestones. I broke down sobbing, overwhelmed with grief and regret. He had always cared, and I never knew. The hardest part was realizing this was all because of my mom's lie. She had told him I didn't want to see him, and told me he didn't care to see me. She poisoned the well from both ends. I confronted her in a fury. I showed up at her house, held up one of Dad's letters and asked, "Did you know about this?" She went pale and started to cry, admitting that yes, she'd kept him away. Through angry tears I asked, "Why? Why would you do that to us?" She tried to defend herself, saying she thought he was a bad influence, or that she was angry he'd hurt her during their marriage. I later learned he cheated on her, which is awful, but it wasn't an excuse to cut me off from my dad. In the end, all she could say was that she thought she was protecting me and herself. That explanation felt so hollow. I told her straight that because of her, I lost the chance to know my father, and he died thinking I didn't want him. "Do you understand what you've done?" I remember saying, voice shaking. She just sobbed and kept apologizing. I left, telling her I needed time and space. In the weeks after, I met with my father's side of the family, aunts, uncles, cousins I never knew. They welcomed me kindly, though it was bittersweet. They even gave me some of Dad's belongings, including a watch he'd hoped to give me one day. Holding that watch broke me all over again. I'm still processing it all. I feel deep anger and betrayal toward my mom. We barely speak right now. Maybe someday I can forgive her, but it won't be anytime soon. Mostly I'm just profoundly sad. I had a father who loved me and tried to be there, and I'll never get to talk to him or hug him. All because of a lie. That family secret, the truth that my dad never wanted to abandon me, came out too late, and it changed everything I thought I knew about my life. Now I have to live with that knowledge and try to heal as best I can. I was 17 when I accidentally discovered that my older sister is actually my mother. Yes, you read that right. The woman I thought was my big sister turned out to be my mom, and the people I thought were my parents are actually my grandparents. It felt like my entire identity was ripped inside out in an instant. It happened one evening when I came home earlier than usual. I walked in on a heated argument between my sister, let's call her Anna, and the woman I knew as Mom, my grandma. They hadn't heard me come in. I paused in the hallway when I heard Anna shout through tears, "I can't keep lying to her. She deserves to know I'm her." And then I heard my grandma hiss, "Shh, not now." My heart dropped into my stomach. I stepped into the kitchen, trembling, and said, "You're my what? What do I deserve to know?" They both froze, staring at me. Anna was crying, and Grandma looked caught. In a shaky voice, Anna told me the truth. "I'm your mother." I felt like the room was spinning. I managed to whisper, How is that possible?" That's when my grandparents sat me down and the whole story tumbled out. Anna had gotten pregnant at 16, with me. My grandparents decided it would be best if they raised me as their own child to give me a stable life, and to allow Anna to still have a normal teen life. So I grew up believing my young biological mother was just my cool older sister. They planned to tell me when I was old enough, but the years passed, and they never found the right moment. And now here we were. I ran out of the house in shock. I ended up at a nearby park, sitting in the dark on a swing, sobbing and feeling like my life was a lie. I can't describe the mix of emotions: betrayal, confusion, anger, and oddly, compassion too, because a part of me realized how painful this secret must have been for Anna to carry. After some time, Anna found me at the park. She approached me slowly, with tears in her eyes, and kept saying, "I'm sorry," over and over. She explained as best as she could. She was young and scared back then, and our grandparents truly thought they were doing the right thing for both of us. She said she wanted to tell me so many times, especially as I grew older, but she was terrified I'd hate her and that it would disrupt our family. Listening to her, I could see how tormented she was by living this lie. It was a lot to take in, but a strange thing happened as we talked. My anger started to soften just a little. I realized that while I felt completely betrayed, these people also loved me. They didn't do it to hurt me. They did it, misguided or not, out of love and fear. By the end of that night, I was exhausted from crying, and we all just held each other. Me, my mom, that felt so weird to say at the time, and my grandparents. There were apologies all around and a lot of emotions. In the weeks that followed, it was awkward and emotionally intense. I had to recalibrate my entire understanding of who's who in my family. I was angry at my grandparents for lying and at Anna for not telling me sooner, but I also understood why they did it. Over time, I forgave them. Their secret had good intentions behind it, even if it was wrong to hide the truth. It's been a year since I found out. I still live with my grandparents. Now I call them Nana and Pop instead of Mom and Dad. And Anna, well, she's my mom, and we're slowly adjusting to that reality. Sometimes I slip and call her by her name, but I've started calling her Mom in private moments, and the smile it brings to her face is worth everything. This huge secret coming out was unbelievably shocking and painful at first, but in a strange way, it has brought us closer. Now there are no more lies. I know who my mother is, and she can finally openly be my mom. It's not a conventional situation by any means, but we're making it work, one day at a time. Finding out that my sister was actually my mother flipped my world upside down, but at least now I'm living in truth, and our family is stronger for it. My sister and I have always been incredibly close, so I never imagined a secret would come between us, let alone one that involved the ultimate betrayal. But it did. About a year ago, my younger sister, whom I call Emily, confided in me that she was pregnant. I was shocked because I hadn't even known she was seeing anyone seriously. She refused to tell me who the father was, saying only that he isn't going to be involved. I was disappointed she wouldn't open up, but I figured she'd tell me in time. I promised to support her regardless. Over the next few months, I helped her through morning sickness, went to ultrasound appointments, all the big sister duties. But it nagged at me. Why was she so secretive about the dad? I worried maybe he was some toxic guy or someone who bailed on her. I tried asking gently once or twice, but she'd shut it down. One evening, Emily was showering at my apartment, and her phone buzzed with a text. Out of habit, I glanced at the screen. It was a message preview from someone saved as J Love that said, "I miss you." My stomach did a flip. Emily hadn't mentioned any boyfriend, let alone someone saved with a heart. Without thinking, I unlocked her phone, as we've always known each other's passcodes. What I saw made my blood run cold. The text conversation with Jay was deeply affectionate, talking about doctor appointments, future plans. I love you. And then I saw a photo he sent of himself. It was Jason, my ex-boyfriend. I felt like I might vomit. Jason and I dated for 3 years. We broke up not long before Emily got pregnant. My sister was having a baby with my ex, and she'd kept it from me this whole time. I was shaking when Emily came out of the bathroom. She saw her phone in my hand and the look on my face. All I managed to say was, "How could you?" She burst into tears instantly, repeating, I'm so sorry, over and over. It turned into a screaming match. I was crying, yelling that she'd betrayed me in the worst way imaginable. She sobbed that it just happened after Jason and I broke up. They hadn't meant to fall for each other, and she was terrified and guilt-ridden when she found out she was pregnant. She said she hid it because she knew it would hurt me deeply, and she didn't want to lose me. I was furious and heartbroken. I told her she already had lost me by doing this. I kicked her out of my apartment that night, The following weeks were awful. I ignored her calls and texts. When my parents found out what happened, it caused a huge rift in the family. They were angry at Emily for her actions, but also sad watching us fall apart. Jason, the ex, tried to reach out to apologize, but I had nothing to say to him. As my sister's due date neared, I felt conflict raging inside me. I hated what she had done, but I also knew an innocent baby was about to arrive, my own nephew. Despite my anger, I worried about her going through labor without her sister by her side like we always imagined. When I got the call that she was in labor, I swore I'd stay away. But I couldn't. I drove to the hospital, heart pounding. I arrived after the baby boy was born. Emily was exhausted and emotional. She burst into tears when she saw me in the doorway. I stood there, unsure what to do, anger and love swirling inside me. Then a nurse placed that tiny newborn in my arms. He was perfect, blinking up at me. In that moment, some of my anger softened. I realized the little one had nothing to do with the circumstances of his conception. He just deserved love. Emily and I cried together. I told her I wasn't ready to forgive her yet, that I was still deeply hurt, but I also told her I'd be there for my nephew. She nodded, understanding. It wasn't a hallmark smooth reconciliation, but it was a start. 6 months on, things are complicated but improving. We attend therapy together to work through the betrayal. I won't pretend it's all okay. Sometimes I still get hit by waves of hurt and resentment. Trusting her again will take a long time. But I also see how remorseful she is. She truly regrets hurting me and would take it back if she could. Jason is in the picture only as a co-parent. There's no romantic relationship there anymore. My focus is on rebuilding my bond with my sister and being a loving aunt to this little boy, who unknowingly brought us a measure of healing. This was the most painful secret I've ever experienced. It changed how I view trust and loyalty. But despite the betrayal, Emily is my sister, and I do love her. I'm cautiously hopeful that with time and effort, we can come through the other side of this stronger. The wound is still there, but we're tending to it, slowly. If nothing else, I have a beautiful nephew whom I adore. A reminder that even from mistakes and secrets, something precious can grow. Growing up, I thought I knew all my relatives, so it was a shock to learn in my mid-20s that I had an aunt I'd never even heard about. The reason why? She'd been kept a secret because of her severe mental disability, a product of a different era's stigma, and our family rarely talked about her. Discovering her changed how I see my family and what it means to truly accept one another. I first heard the name Rose in a hushed conversation between my mom and grandma. When I asked, my mom reluctantly came clean. Rose is my mom's younger sister, my aunt, who was born with significant developmental disabilities. In the 1970s, resources and understanding were scarce. My grandparents made the painful decision to place her in a full-time care facility when she was very young. To avoid gossip and difficult questions, they told people, and eventually their children and grandkids, that there was no other sibling. Essentially, they erased Rose from the public story of our family, though not from their hearts. I was floored. Part of me was upset that they thought they had to hide her, but I also tried to understand the context of those times. What mattered most to me was that I now knew I had an aunt, and, by a twist of fate, I was living in the same city where her care home was located. I decided I wanted to meet her. The first time I visited Aunt Rose, I was nervous. I wasn't sure how much she'd understand, or if she'd even want to see me. The staff were warm and introduced me as a family member. Rose was in her 50s, with kind eyes that oddly resembled my mom's. She was mostly nonverbal, but she could say a few simple words. I gently explained who I was, her nephew. I showed her some family photos, including a childhood picture of her and my mom together. She studied it and smiled, which made me tear up on the spot. After that, I started visiting her regularly. We went on little outings like the mall for ice cream, she loved strawberry, or to the park to feed ducks. She might not communicate like most people, but her laughter and clapping when she was happy spoke volumes. Slowly we formed a bond. It felt incredible to give her experiences outside the facility and just spend time with her as family. Eventually, I convinced my mom and even my aging grandparents to come visit Rose with me. They were hesitant at first, likely out of guilt and fear. But when they finally did, it was a beautiful reunion. I'll never forget my grandma walking in, and Rose immediately lighting up and saying, "Mom," one of the few words she can say. My tough old grandma just broke down crying and hugged her tightly. My mom, Rose's sister, held her hand and talked to her softly, introducing herself as Sissy, like Rose used to call her. It was an emotional day for all of us, but in a healing way. Decades of silence were broken. My Aunt Rose passed away a year later due to health complications. But in that short time, I'm grateful we got to know and love her openly. Bringing her back into the family fold, even late in life, changed us all. My family regretted keeping her a secret for so long. That regret has made us more honest and compassionate with each other going forward. For me personally, meeting Rose taught me that every family member, no matter their challenges, deserves love and inclusion. Her memory remains a blessing to us. This family secret could have remained hidden in shame, but once it came out, it ultimately brought a sense of reconciliation and deeper love to our family.